Hi everybody, I just wanted to show you guys my recipe for making a healthy and delicious vegan pizza. And so I've got a couple different things going on here, and I'll share some tips with you guys. You don't need to do everything in one day. That makes it more time consuming. So usually I would, for example, here's all my toppings, my roasted vegetables, and then I sauteed some callaloo and red onion together. You could just use spinach or kale or whatever green vegetable you like. Callaloo is very high in iron, and I'm trying to increase my iron, so that's why I picked that vegetable. And then I have some portobello mushrooms that I oven roasted. I'm not a mushroom fan. I've shared that repeatedly, but I find that if I oven roast them, I like them. I will at some point do a short video on how you roast vegetables. But I will tell you that you basically just slice them thin and toss them with oil and seasonings, and then put them in a single layer in a baking sheet like this, and put it in the oven at 400 for about 20 minutes or so until it's starts to brown out. It'll smell very fragrant. You'll be able to tell, but it won't be burnt. That's how I get that. So, and then red and yellow orange bell peppers. Love that on my pizza. What's in this pot right now is some shallots. This is going to make the base. Instead of doing a red sauce, I found that we really like a white sauce on our pizzas. So I've changed it up and switched to this. So in here are 4 shallots that I took and just chopped them up, basically, mainly because I like the mild flavor of shallots. You could skip the shallots. I sauteed them in oil. Then I added about 3 tablespoons of flour to this mixture, so I'm making a roux, for those of you who are familiar with that. And I just cook it for a few minutes to get that flour taste out of there. The flour is basically going to add thickness only. Then I add to this a few cups of hemp seed milk. You can use any plant-based milk that you like. I like the hemp seed milk because it's very easy when I don't have any ready to go. To make this, I blended 3 tablespoons of hemp seeds with 3 cups of water. That's it. No need to strain it at all. You can pour it straight in here. If I did in my homemade almond milk or walnut milk or anything else like that, I would need to strain it out. This is what hemp seeds look like when they come to you whole from the grocery store. And so just to show you guys kind of what they look like before you mix them, for those who aren't familiar with them. They don't have a lot of flavor, so it's not really going to make this taste like anything. It's basically just giving us the liquid. So this will simmer for a few minutes, and it's going to start to thicken on its own. I created this sauce about a month and a half ago, and it is delicious. I'm trying to think still of other applications for it. So I have some excess milk here. If this started to thicken a little more than I like, I would go ahead and pour that in. If you're making a pizza just for yourself, you really only would need maybe 1 to 2 shallots and a cup of milk and a tablespoon of flour. You don't need as much. I am making a lot because we eat a lot, and I'd rather have more sauce left over than not enough. And then I just use a whisk. You do want to stir it, period. So this is the base for the cashew cheese sauce. For those following Dr. Sebi, cashews are not recommended on his list. You could do a Brazil nut cheese sauce, basically using the same ingredients. Soak your Brazil nuts overnight and or for 6 hours or so, and then follow the rest of the ingredients here. I'm still using cashews on occasion. They just yield a creamier sauce, I find, and so that's what's going to work best today for my family. So what we have here in the blender are cashews that soaked overnight, and some lime juice. There are red bell peppers, and these bell peppers I held them over the flame. This bell pepper, I washed it off, and then I held it over the open flame so that it would char, like you see here. And then for seasonings, I've added in some salt and a little onion powder and ginger powder. Great combination, gives it good flavor. And that's all I have in here. And I think I did a pinch of cayenne powder. And so now I'm just going to add the water. And I should be doing better with my measurements, but I'm not yet. So I'm just going to add the water in here. This you really honestly don't need to measure too tough. If you see here, the water just needs to kind of cover the cashews, and then I can add a little more as I blend if it's getting too thick. Okay, so now we can look here, and ideally I would have done a little less water. Because it's a little watery, but it's fine. So I'm just going to give it a quick taste, and it already tastes good. I'm not just saying that because of the camera. It actually does already taste good. I'm going to add a pinch more salt. As you can see, the color is not super yellow. If you're a fan of turmeric, you could add just a pinch of that, and I may do just a small pinch. Turmeric can be an irritant if you use too much of it, so I know there's a lot of good research out there on turmeric as well. You have to definitely search for yourself. For me, I use it sparingly, not all the time, and then also you don't really need a lot. So I'm going to do a pinch just to get more yellow, because that will work better for my family when they get ready to eat it. Visual is very important. After I add a little bit more salt and a small pinch of turmeric to this, I'm going to show you guys how to do the crust. Okay, so now it's time to make our crust. And I know it can seem a little intimidating. I used to be intimidated by it, but it's really easy. And to the point where I don't measure much anymore with it, but I'm doing it for you guys today. So in the bowl here, I have a mixture of flours. I have spelt flour, because you know I don't do conventional wheat anymore. Very bad for the gut. As a matter of fact, now anytime I do have it, call myself having a cheat, I pay for it, cramping and everything. So, but spelt is an ancient form of wheat, much gentler on the system. So I have spelt in here. I have 3 cups of flour total, and it's just any blend that you desire of spelt. I added in some buckwheat flour just because I like to vary the nutrition. Buckwheat flour doesn't really taste great on its own, in my opinion, so I like to blend it with the spelt. And then I have about a cup of kamut, which is also another grain that's an ancient grain, and it makes it adds a really nice texture to pizza, almost like cornmeal, which is a hard comparison to imagine, but there's a lot of pizzas that have cornmeal as a part of the crust. I also then season it. I add some salt, maybe a little Italian seasoning, a little onion powder, whatever you like, because if your dough is not seasoned, your crust is going to taste bland. So now what I do is I just make a well in the center, and then I add oil. I've measured out here a little less than a 1/3 cup of oil that I'm adding into the middle there, because you do want your dough to have some moisture to it. And then I just add in some water. This is about a little over a cup of water, which should be enough. As I'm adding the water, I just start stirring. Now, as you're doing this, let me see, we used about 2/3 cup of water. You'll see your dough start to come together. This is actually a little bit wet. So I'm going to need to add a little bit more flour. 1 second. Right? Because you want it to be the consistency of, you know, like what you would consider to be pizza dough. Now, I don't use yeast anymore, and so this pizza dough does not need to rise at all. Once you get it together in a ball like this, see how it's coming together into a dough ball? You're just going to roll it out and put it directly on the pizza pan. Now, ideally, it would be best if you're using a cast iron. I got this off Amazon. It's really awesome to preheat this. Then you could get a nice crisp on your crust. What I'm going to do this time is I'm going to pre-bake it on that for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to take it completely off of the pan. And after I add the toppings, I'm going to cook it directly on the rack, because I want to get a crispier crust than I have in the past, where it was kind of more bread-like. So take a look at this, guys. This is our dough right here. I try not to handle it to death just from years of baking. I know that if you overhandle dough, sometimes it can be too tough. So I just want to get it together, kind of form a ball, knead it just a little bit in here. Let's take it out and transfer it to here. Okay, you don't need a fancy pastry mat, you can just use your counter. So I'm transferring it to here to get it just like this. And now we have it. That's our crust. Now I just use my rolling pin. Maybe you guys will be my good luck charm and I'll finally be able to achieve a round circle. Oh, I forgot one thing. This is actually enough for two crusts. So I'm going to take, because I like to have a thin crust, I'm going to take about half of this dough off of here and put it back in the bowl. Sometimes what we'll do is everybody will roll out their own crust and then put their own toppings that they like on it. So I'm just kind of putting this back into a dough shape like that. And you'll see, this is going to be plenty. So what I've seen them do, the professionals, they go like this. And you see I have a circle diagram on here, but yet for some reason, I can never seem to get a circle. So if your dough gets a little sticky, just add a little more flour to it, it's fine. Round and round. So this is it right here. Just keep rolling. Now you can also use a square pan, and you see how I'm already turning it into a rectangle? And it's not a circle. Sometimes I've shaped it in the pan, in the round pan, and that helps. All right, so rolling and rolling. And I'm probably just gonna go with this. You can see the herbs and stuff that are in there, so that lets you know lots of flavor. As you guys can see, my crust did not come out nice and round. That's okay. I've still got more dough to play with. My family doesn't care. And but I didn't separate it evenly, right? Because I was rushing a little bit. Ideally, you could use something and slice it right down the middle to make sure you have two even crusts. But we're not particular. So I pre-baked this for about 10 minutes because that helps the dough come together a little bit, because keep in mind, everything else is already cooked. We're just baking it again to kind of help those flavors come together. Here is our white sauce. Now this sauce, I added a little bit of thyme and sage to it as well, in addition to the salt, onion powder, a little ginger powder, and a little bit of cayenne pepper, because the sage and thyme just gives it more flavor. And honestly, it tastes kind of like a country gravy. Like if you've had biscuits and gravy with a white gravy, that's really what this tastes like. So I guess you could call this my gravy pizza. Sometimes I'll make a pizza, one white sauce, one red sauce. Everybody really likes the white sauce, so I've been doing that a lot more lately. And then you can even drizzle more of this on top if you like it. If you don't love this, that's fine. You can make a traditional marinara sauce. Now I'm adding more because I've noticed that it tends to soak up a lot of the sauce, and then when it comes out, it's a little bit on the dry side. So just from that experience, I'm adding a little more to make it saucier. And then I'm gonna go ahead and throw our toppings on. So I'm gonna start with our bell peppers here. This, again, these are red and yellow roasted bell peppers. I'm tossing on here. When you're making vegan food, it is all about flavor. You have to try harder, to be honest with you, especially if you're serving meat eaters. You gotta go harder. They're gonna like it more if it has lots of flavor, because in my opinion, meat only tastes like what you season it with. That's the only reason why it's so good, is because of the seasonings that are put on it. So I use the same seasonings on my food. I just use vegan ingredients instead, right? Or most of the same seasonings. These are my mushrooms. I like to chop them up really small like this because I think the bite is better, and I think that the flavor is better when they're chopped up and roasted, right? So I spread lots of those on there because now we all like it, and that wasn't the case before, right? So, and then the last layer is our vegetable. Could be any green that you choose. This is a great way to get veggies in for the kids. A lot of color here, and I know some kids have a struggle with that, but my solution is to always say, just try a little bit and see if you like it. And this was one of the first things that I made that my family liked when I first changed over my eating. So now that this is on here, at this point, you're basically done. You don't have to add anything else. But I did want to take it up a notch a little bit with my cashew cheese sauce. Ideally, this should be a little bit thicker than this, but I'm gonna go ahead and roll with it anyway and just kind of drizzle it across the top like this. And then I will do a rebake. I've done this with a variety of different things. I've used a more block form. I've used a store-bought vegan cheese, but it's very expensive and we like this just the same. So if you do the store-bought vegan cheese, I would recommend the Follow Your Heart mozzarella brand. And then I would also suggest to you that you hit it under the broiler very briefly to help the cheese melt, because it's not dairy. It doesn't have those ingredients in it to give you that melty, ooey gooey, bad for your body lactose situation. So this is it. I'm going to put this in the oven and bake it and then show you guys the finished product. Here is a slice of the pizza all done, as you can see here. All the ingredients came together well. Yes, there's a lot of stuff on there. You don't have to do yours the same way. We like it like this. I pre-baked the crust for about 15 minutes, brought it back out, put my toppings on, baked it again for another 15 minutes or so to get the crust how I like it. It's not super crispy. It kind of tastes more like a flatbread. It's got a nice chew to it, but most importantly, these flavors are on point. I think this might be my best pizza yet, honestly. Every time I try, I'm getting better and better. So I hope that you watch this. You're encouraged to try your own. Please let me know if you have any questions. I am working on a more exact recipe for this, as I'll be doing this in an upcoming cooking class, and I want to make sure that everybody can replicate it as closely as possible. Enjoy!